Welcome to Raivision Films, the first Raivision Dialogue, in which we are going to talk on a very important global issue and something which is very current in Australia, in Sydney, where we live as well. And today I'm going to talk to a good friend of mine, a person whom I have interacted with for a long time, and I know he's very educated, engineer. First of all, let me welcome Joe Thomas. And
thank you.
And Joe, instead of me trying to describe your background, your education qualifications, and your expertise, I'll let you tell the audience about yourself first.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you, Dr. Satish. My name is Joe Thomas, and I was born in India, 1946, and a year before the independence. Educated in central India, and my mother tongue is Hindi. I do speak English and a couple of Indian languages and a couple of European languages. I completed a degree in engineering and worked with the aircraft industry in India for about 20 years. Then moved to Australia and worked for another 22 years with Boeing Australia and the Department of Defense. And now I am out of the full-time workforce, but I do a little bit of part-time work. That's only as a standby engineer in case there is a need on call. Other than that, I lead a reasonably relaxed life.
And I also know that you are a very keen researcher on various subjects. And today our subject is COVID, and which the world is presently grappling with. So we'll start the first Raivision dialogue on this subject. And I'll start the dialogue by asking you what are the current status of the global COVID-19, Corona-19.
Well, the first time the world came to know about it was early of 2020. And I remember it was like January 2020, and I was about to leave for India. And in connection with some of the family commitments. And it was a question whether I really should be leaving Sydney and Australia, and whether I will be able to sort of face through the requirements of traveling and clearances from the various airports and authorities. But the commitment was a bit important, so I went ahead with it. I did face some difficulties while traveling both away from India and returning to Australia, but was lucky to do it by about middle of February, by which time virtually the shutters were pulled down by almost every country at the boundary, and traveling became almost impossible. And now it is, of course, almost banned. You just can't, at least from Australia, can't leave and come back till early 2023. Now, the scenario globally is not only changed, but it's very unique. I call it actually COVID transformed living, for which there is no parallel experience from the past. I mean, yeah, we have lived through epidemics and pandemics and through world wars and through many, many crises in the human history, but there was never a time where the entire humanity around all the countries of the world are facing the same challenges as I am facing here in Sydney in Australia. And that is how to lead a life which has been completely transformed by an epidemic called COVID.
Okay, I remember on travel briefly, Joe, both you and I were in India at the time. we managed to return in time. A lot of people did not. Some probably did not take Corona that seriously then and decided to stay on. And now there is still languishing in India and other parts of the world, unable to return. But there's another issue. We'll talk about it later. Now I want to come to the status in Sydney, the city we live in. Let's talk about the Delta Plus variant. You told me something alarming a couple of days ago. The mutation of Delta Plus virus. Can you tell me a bit more about that? What's happening to that mutation?
Yeah, thank you, Satish, for asking me my views. Of course, first of all, I'm a layman, not an expert on these issues. But then, you read a bit of news
So
and do a bit of research.
can I say something? Sometimes layman talks better than the so-called experts because most of the experts are getting this wrong. So please go on.
Okay, fair enough. But the thing is that to me, it appears that irrespective of from where the virus started, say it certainly have spread around the world. It did not start in India, that is very sure, because I was there and I really didn't see that. And I actually went via Hong Kong last January, and I could see that it was already very predominant in China, in Hong Kong, which is a part of China. So it certainly started from China, and it had a version or a nomenclature called the alpha version. Now, it appears to me that this is a version which gives you a sickness which is on a cycle of 14 days and which starts initially like flu symptoms and then picks up the next 5 days and then it comes down if you are lucky to survive, or obviously you become a victim of that. Now, this is what's called as the alpha version, and then for whatever reason, it went on spreading around the world. And then when it went to India, obviously the average condition, environmental condition in and around cities and big places in India is a combination of healthy and unhealthy. And the virus got various mutations. And finally, it ended up with a very dangerous version, which was first called the Indian version, and then it became the Greek letter, which is Delta, and Delta then became Delta Plus. Now, the difference between the Alpha version and the Delta Plus version is that Delta Plus is much more dangerous, and it really peaks in 24 hours as compared to 5 days of the Alpha version. So if it's picking up in 24 hours, then all the problems of symptoms of breathlessness and lack of oxygen will be required in 24 hours. And that's where the problem is. You have got no time really to go to a GP and then have a test and then find out that you are COVID positive and then go to a hospital and then get yourself admitted in an ICU is straight away required in 24 hours. And the thing is like that it almost becomes a race against time for just your own living. And that is where I really believe that the Delta Plus version is really not even giving adequate chance and adequate time. Say every sickness, it starts with a small, a degree of discomfort and the body starts slowing down. And then you get the feeling and then you can go to a GP, try to take some medicine, try to take some, preventive measure, but Delta Plus does not give you that. Yeah.
So the question, Joe, is the way the virus is mutating now. Do you think further mutation is going to give even lesser time to those infected and vulnerable to survive or get medical assistance? Where are we going with this?
To me, from what I really understand from following the news and the developments around the world, it appears that the Delta version, which really was a mutation of the Alpha in India, became Delta Plus, which in turn have further mutated to uh, the Lambda and the Kappa version. These are all actually Greek alphabets like A, B, C, D. So Lambda and Kappa are. So now there are already 7 versions. I understand that the Lambda version was started from Peru in South America, the famous place where this Inca tribe used to live, and Machu Picchu is the world famous site where I have been. I'm pretty sure that what I saw in Peru and Machu Picchu are absolutely pristine nature of, green mountains and clean water, and the population is not that very high. So while the standard of living is not very poor, I mean, it's average, and therefore I don't think that has happened because of the unhygienic conditions in and around living places. It's just that the virus is getting in touch with newer things which it did not get in touch before.
In that case, Joe, prevention is becoming more and more important. We know there are 2 main ways to keep yourself safe. One is social distancing. If you don't get near a person who has the virus or has likelihood of having the virus, you won't get it, most probably. And secondly is the vaccine. So let's get to vaccine. In your opinion and through your research, how effective vaccination is in preventing COVID, and how successful do you think vaccination will prove eventually in controlling this?
Well, the vaccines have been developed by some of the very reputed organizations, universities, laboratories, and the countries. And there are about half a dozen vaccinations, starting from AstraZeneca to Moderna to the Sputnik from Russia and the Chinese ones. I mean, the Chinese ones came first, and then the Russian ones came. The Western one, the American and the British ones came later because they went through a larger number of testing and trials. And in general, I mean, before the coronavirus, all the vaccines for similar epidemics were developed in a period of 10 years. And that's the average time taken for it. And there is a written down procedure for this thing, which of course could not be followed because of the rate at which the virus was spreading and people were dying. So whatever has been introduced now has been done, without fully testing. But then at some stage, the authorities had to take a decision to stop the research and then start using it to at least get even half or a part of the benefit as compared to the full benefit.
At the moment, what he said is that normally a vaccine takes 10 years to come up with the solution, but this one has come up within a year. And a lot of people are saying that humans are now acting as guinea pigs for these people who have come up with the vaccination. What are your thoughts on that?
It is true, but the thing is, unfortunately, I mean, at least in the country where we live or where I live, is Australia, and there's no compulsion. It's really entirely my choice.
Let's, Joe, talk about the second alternative, which we're going to talk about it soon, is probably better alternative for me, is social distancing. It doesn't cost you a lot. I know it costs people who are employed, but in many cases, the government are providing subsidies, wage subsidies, so that people can carry on with their lives. But on the other hand, people who are not going to work, it's quite simple. You just keep away, don't go out. Just for 2 weeks. If there were lockdowns, total lockdowns for 2 weeks, as I said, the virus life is about a much shorter period. We wouldn't be in this place today. That's my thoughts. What do you think?
Well, social distancing is one of the three sort of, prescribed requirements, along with wearing masks and obviously sort of, ensuring that you get yourself sort of, tested, which is obviously the positive way. So testing, wearing a mask, and social distancing are the three corners of the tripod.
It's okay to go out for essentials. I venture out once a week probably, to just get the essentials and as quickly as possible and come back and keep inside. But on the other hand, there are people who, I don't know, they have this compulsion to just go out. They want to have Jao beer in the pub with their friends. They want to go to the beaches and all this stuff. Why that compulsion? I mean, it's we are into sort of 18 months into this COVID times. I would think the people would get the message. If you, in order to get rid of COVID, you have to take on some responsibilities as well. Why aren't the people doing that? Not all of them, but quite a few. As soon as the COVID figures go down, people dash out.
In Australia, where we live, say, okay, if I feel like having a drink, the choice is to go to a pub and have a drink and share a bit of a social nicety with a few friends, or just go to the bottle shop and pick one and do it at home. So the thing is, but let me give you the parallel example of the country where I come from, where I am born. And there, even now, the people are queuing up for kilometers, in the limited hours when the bottle shops are open. And it is almost impossible to believe that in those circumstances, the chances of getting a COVID while waiting in the queue to buy a bottle of liquor is much higher. So the unfortunate thing is that human beings are slaves of habit. Some are addicted. They just can't do without it. So the question is, what do you really care for?
Once again, Joe, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Stay on. We'll have a little chat after we have stopped recording. And to the audience now who are joined live and who are going to watch this video afterwards on the social media, please, if you have got any opinions, thoughts, write to me, share those thoughts with me, and also let me know which other issues you want us to discuss. And on Sunday, I'm going to talk to a very great musician from Fiji, Andar Kumar, on music and creating original music. For now, is goodbye from me, Satish Rai.
Thank you.